He never expected a knock at midnight, least of all from a terrified Comanche girl. Rain soaked her buckskin dress, but her eyes burned with silent pleas. He opened the door. By sunrise, his home was surrounded, 70 warriors, their arrows aimed at his heart. All for a kindness he couldn't undo. The storm rolled in just past midnight, carrying more than thunder. When the knock came, it was soft, hesitant. He opened the door to find a young Comanche girl, drenched and shaking, her eyes wide with fear and exhaustion. She said nothing, but her presence begged for mercy. He knew the risks, but he stepped aside. Inside, he gave her warmth, food, and silence. She didn't speak his language, but desperation needs no translation. As dawn broke, she watched the horizon anxiously. He did too. Then they came. 70 warriors, silent and grim, appeared over the ridge like ghosts. They formed a half-circle around his cabin, bows drawn, spears resting in calloused hands. At their center rode a tall man with eyes like flint. Her father. The man stepped forward, raising a single hand. The girl ran out before anyone could stop her. There was no scream, no fight, just a pause, heavy as the storm before it breaks. He thought he was a dead man. Instead, her father dismounted, walked to him slowly, and spoke in broken English. You gave her shelter. That is honor. A tense moment passed before the warrior turned, signaled his men, and vanished into the trees. No blood spilled. No fire set. Just footprints left in the mud. He stood there for a long time, staring after them. In a world carved by betrayal and vengeance, a simple act of mercy had nearly cost him everything and maybe, just maybe, saved him too. The girl came in silence, barefoot and bleeding, her shadow barely visible in the pale moonlight. He found her just beyond the edge of his land, half collapsed near the fence line, too weak to run and too proud to beg. He carried her inside without a word. She was Comanche. He tended her wounds, gave her bread, water, and the warmth of a fire. No questions. No judgment. Just shelter. By the time the sun cracked the sky, the horizon was filled with motion, silent, swift, and overwhelming. 70 warriors on horseback. Spears glinting. Faces unreadable. They encircled his cabin like wolves around a wounded deer. He stepped onto his porch, unarmed, heart pounding like war drums. The girl slipped past him, standing in the open with her arms raised, not in fear, but in defiance. She shouted something in Comanche. One of the warriors rode forward. Older, scarred, with eyes that held storms. Her father. For a long, breathless moment, nothing moved. Then the chief dismounted, looked the man dead in the eyes, and spoke with quiet gravity. She is mine. You did not have to save her. But you did. He expected retribution. Instead, he got a nod. The warriors pulled back. One by one, like shadows fading with the morning mist. He stood there until the last hoofbeat disappeared. Some acts of mercy are simple. Others change the course of lives. That morning, 70 warriors came to judge one man's heart and found something worth sparing. He heard the dogs bark just before midnight. A rustle near the barn, then silence. By the time he stepped outside, lantern in hand, she was already there, slumped beside the gate, clutching her side, eyes wild with fear. A Comanche girl. No more than 16. He didn't ask why she ran. He didn't ask who she ran from. He only saw blood, exhaustion, and a child who needed shelter. He brought her inside, wrapped her wounds, fed her stew, and offered the floor beside the fire. She said nothing, but her gaze lingered on the door like she was waiting for ghosts. By dawn, the land was no longer his alone. They came as shadows stretched across the prairie, 70 riders, still and watchful, surrounding the cabin like a closing hand. Spears planted in the dirt. Eyes sharp with accusation. And at their head, a man draped in bone and leather, silent as a storm. The girl stepped out before he could stop her. She raised her arms, not in fear, but peace, and called to them. The elder dismounted. Their eyes met, the farmers and the warriors. Two men, worlds apart, yet bound by something older than borders. You gave her roof, food, life, the warrior said, voice deep and calm. You could have turned her away. I didn't, the farmer replied. The warrior nodded once. That is honor. No war cry followed. No vengeance spilled. Just a slow, solemn retreat into the morning mist. That night, he sat alone by the fire, her scent still on the blanket, the echo of hoofbeats fading. In a land shaped by blades and betrayal, one roof had held more than shelter, it had held the weight of honor, and carried it through the dawn. He found her curled beside the creek at dusk, mud-streaked, shivering, and alone. A Comanche girl, no older than his youngest niece, hiding from something or someone. She flinched as he approached, but her eyes held no threat, only fear. He didn't speak. Just knelt, offered his coat, and waited. She took it. He brought her to the cabin. Gave her bread, a blanket, and space near the fire. She spoke little, and he didn't pry. Some stories speak louder in silence. The next morning, he awoke to the sound of hooves, dozens of them. He stepped outside, heart sinking. 70 warriors ringed his home in a perfect arc. Their faces were painted with purpose, their horses still as death. At their head sat a broad-shouldered man with eyes that mirrored the girl's. She stood beside him now, barefoot and small, whispering words in her language. The man dismounted, approached slowly. You gave her shelter, he said. Not a question. A statement. The farmer nodded. She needed help. You knew who she was? I knew she was alone. The warrior studied him. Long, silent. Then a short nod. You showed mercy to a stranger. That takes strength. With a gesture, he turned his horse. The warriors followed, disappearing back into the horizon like mist at sunrise. The farmer stood there for a long time, hands trembling, watching the empty fields. He never learned her name. But for the rest of his life, he remembered her face and the moment mercy, given freely, spared him from the fire. He didn't expect anyone on the trail that night, much less a wounded girl stumbling through the dust. She collapsed near his corral, clutching her side, her breath sharp with pain. Moonlight revealed her heritage, Comanche, young, and far from home. He should have walked away. Instead, he carried her inside, laid her by the hearth, and cleaned her wounds with trembling hands. She winced, but never cried. He offered food, a blanket, a fire. She took them all without a word. He asked no questions. Some kindnesses speak louder in silence. But kindness has a price. At dawn, the plains trembled with thunder, not of storms, but of hooves. 70 warriors rose from the hills like ghosts born of smoke and vengeance. They circled his home, weapons drawn, their eyes accusing. He stepped outside slowly, unarmed. She followed. A warrior dismounted, older than the others, dressed in bone and leather, his face hard as stone. Her father. She spoke to him quickly, her voice fierce despite her injuries. The warrior listened. Then he turned to the farmer. You took her in, he said flatly. I did, the farmer replied. You knew the risk. I did. You did it anyway. A long silence passed. Then the warrior nodded. For that, you pay no price. With that, he turned. The warriors melted back into the hills, like the moment had never happened. The farmer exhaled for the first time in hours. He'd offered simple mercy, and in a world where one wrong move could spark war, it nearly cost him his life. But that morning, it earned him something rare on the frontier. Respect. The sun had barely set when he heard the soft knock, timid, almost unsure. When he opened the door, a young Comanche girl stood there, barefoot and bleeding, her hair tangled, her eyes locked in silent fear. He hesitated. She didn't beg. She didn't speak. She just looked at him like she had nowhere else to go. He stepped aside. Inside, he offered her water, bread, and warmth. She ate like she hadn't in days. He didn't ask where she came from or why. Some truths hang too heavy in the air to speak aloud. By dawn, the answer arrived. 70 warriors crowned the horizon, still as statues, their faces painted in grief and wrath. They encircled his home like a closing noose. A single rider dismounted tall, broad, with the commanding silence of a man who'd seen too many winters. Her father. She ran to him before words could be exchanged. There was no fear in her step, only urgency. She spoke rapidly in their tongue, gesturing to the cabin, to the man who had sheltered her. The warrior turned to the settler, eyes narrowed. "You protected her," he said. "She needed help. You are not one of us." "No. But I am a man." Another long pause. The warrior looked back at the girl, then to the men behind him. Spears stayed in hand. Hearts still pounded. Then he gave a single nod. "You stand between peace and war. This day, peace wins." And with that, they rode away. The settler stood in silence, heart still racing. No victory. No celebration. Just the knowledge that mercy, in that moment, had held back a tide of blood. Some days, the line between peace and war is a doorframe and a choice made in the dark.